why a great deal doesn't necessarily have to be off market. Now, since the dawn of the property Facebook groups and property training courses, there has been this unwritten myth that every great deal has to be off market. And I want to really get into the detail and the truth behind this urban myth, this urban legend. And more importantly, I think that if you really start to scratch below the surface, this wording, this attachment that great deals have to be off market is just another load of BS brought to you by property sources and people trying to sell you training and property mentorships. So what is an off-market deal? Typically, it is something that you can potentially buy or do a deal on, like an option or a rent-to-rent, that isn't currently being advertised on the market. Whether that's through estate agents, letting agencies, Rightmove, Zoopla, doesn't matter. The stigma is off market. And there is a mythology, a general consensus that if it's off market, then it's a great deal. But here are the hidden truths to why you shouldn't always jump with 2 feet into these deals. Now, my experience is that I have been approached by property sources who are relatively new to property, trying to sell me these deals, and their first headline isn't the below market value, the future GDV, the potential rental income. It's the fact that it's off market, which, if I'm being brutally honest with, I couldn't give 2 shits if a property is on market or off market. If the deal stacks up and it's a great deal and I get it for the right price, I couldn't care less where it's being advertised. And neither should you. What difference does it make to a property investor and the end result, where it came from and if it was advertised on market? We have had this message driven home to us over the years through social media, through YouTube, through sources, through property trainers, that it has to be off market or you have to source off market deals. Now, when I was approached by a sourcer, I was told the first thing that it was an off-market deal, but I couldn't give a shit. My priority was how much was it? And then the sourcer went on to tell me how much it was and why it was nearly 20% above anything else on the market, and why that this area was the new student hotspot in this location. What they didn't know is that I lived and invest in this city, and what the area that we're talking about was never going to be a student hotspot, let alone the next big thing. So compounded with everything that this sourcer was telling me, the deal just didn't stack up. And because they were trying to convince me that to buy it because it was an off-market deal, just really made my impressions of this off-market wording even worse. Then fast forward on to a few years later, I had a deal which I was selling. The property had been purchased, it had been refurbished and fully rented, and it was a great deal to sell to a retail investor or a hands-off investor who doesn't want to get involved in any of the work. And I lost count how many of these property sources, these property sellers, whatever you want to call them, who were contacting me and they were telling me that they had an investor ready to go and they just wanted me to sign a little document. Oh, and by the way, can you take it off the market with the estate agent that you've got so we can advertise it as off market? Well, my first question was, well, why do you need to advertise it if you've got investors already lined up? You've got someone ready to buy it. And the reason they wanted to do that is because they know that the message being hit home to the people who are believing all the hype is that if it's off market, it's like a hook to a fish, and it hooks that investor on the line, and then they can sell them all the other bump that goes with it. And the reality is that deal was already on the market, and it was probably cheaper than what the sourcer was going to sell it to his investor for, because he wanted to wrap up his fee in the purchase price. So the investor didn't know how much he was earning, which was substantial. He wanted a massive fee. It was of no interest to me. And the reason for doing this video right now, and to really hit home this message of the BS behind off-market deals, is because of the property that I'm stood in right now. And I've seen a lot of the copycats who do YouTube videos or recently do videos about off-market deals or how to source off-market deals. And you will know that there has never been a video like that from me, because you do not need to focus on off-market deals. And if you take this deal that I'm stood in right now, this project, no investor, no off-market, no complex strategy, no super thinking behind it. It is a really simple deal. And more importantly, it was on the open market for everyone, every Tom, Dick and Harry to look at, and no one else decided to buy it. And this is because lots of people, lots of property investors focus on the wrong thing. If you focus on BMV, you focus on off-market deals, you focus on rent-to-rent, service accommodations, all of these different things, without trying to focus on finding great deals, then you will miss them. And look, in Norwich, there is probably 50 new property investors that have hit the market in the last 18 months to 2 years. And lots of them are brand new to property, looking for the next big win, the next great big deal. So the hunger is at its highest it's probably ever going to be. And not one of them has bought this deal that I'm stood in today. And I'm not saying that to be arrogant or cocky or rub it in their faces. I am literally trying to help every single one of you watching this video to get the great deals and to not let the noise and the grey areas cloud your judgment. So let's talk about this deal. It didn't go crazy on the day of the auction. I wasn't able to underwrite it. There was no special conditions attached to it, and there was no advantage for me. I was a normal Joe bidding on this property. But I knew that this particular deal had one of the key things that I focus on, which is the ability to split it into multiple dwellings. In fact, it is already multiple dwellings. And because the deal lends itself so nicely to that structure, I won't need to sell it to materialize the best chunk of the profit. I can refinance it out, all completely tax-free, and hold on to this one with large, good, sustainable rental income and have a nice increase on my balance sheet, whilst taking all of the money that I've put into the deal back out when I refinance it. And why do I think that no one else bid on this deal? There are a couple of reasons. It looks worse than it is. So to the untrained eye, or to the new property investor, or the people who want to do the sexy stuff, something that looks worse than it actually is does sometimes create a 2 + 2 = 5 scenario, where they think that it's going to unearth even more hidden issues, so they tend not to bother. This is a little bit of a complex purchase. It's not a straight residential. It's typically harder to finance. New individuals, new property investors, people looking to chase the shiny penny don't really want to get into something where they can't find easy finance for it, or they may not know where to look. That's another reason why I don't think this went massively over guide. But the reality is, the real reason, my opinion, is why no one else has snapped this up is because they don't know what they're looking for. This is an unsexy project in an unsexy location without the really sexy multiple markets for selling and renting. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have the ability to be converted and developed to hit these key target markets. It just takes knowing the local area, knowing the local market, and knowing where the opportunities are, and seeing how you can join the dots to make the deal work. The dots, when they come to you, don't have a line between them. It's up to you to join them. And this is what great property investing is all about. And that is how you really can understand what deals to go for. And when you do, you can pick up the ones which are on market, not off market. Don't pay a source's fee, buy it for what you think it's worth, and then you can make a really good return. I'm not going to show you much more about this property because I've got another video coming over the next few months about this particular project, and more in depth about how we convert it, how we split it, and what it's going to look like at the end. And there is some really nice little nuggets and cherries on top about this particular property. But I've talked about buying properties to put you into a position of strength, and this is absolutely one of them. I've done some great deals over the years, deals that generate huge amounts of rental income, have generated huge amounts of equity, 7-figure amounts of equity. But I do believe the deal that I am stood in right now is going to be one of the best deals that I have ever done. But look, that's it from me. I hope you found the content rich, and I'll catch you all on the next video.